I will never forget the smell that night. Cold metal, sweat and fear. Not just mine, but the fear of 20 other women huddled in the stone holding room beneath the grand auction hall. The torches burned low, throwing our shadows against the wall like trembling ghosts. We were dressed alike, in pale gray gowns that clung to our skin. They said it was tradition. I thought it was a way to remind us that we were all the same, property to be sold. I sat near the far wall, trying to make myself invisible. My hands were bound with silver thread rope that burned if I struggled. Around my neck hung the one thing that was mine, a small moonstone pendant carved in the shape of a wolf's head. My mother had left it with me before she died, and I had kept it hidden for years. A sharp voice broke the quiet. "Heads up, girls." The door swung open and a woman in a red cloak entered. She was the handler, her hair twisted tight like a crown of thorns. "Smile when they look at you. Nobody wants to buy a frightened face." No one moved. We all knew better than to speak. When the guards came to fetch the first girl, I tried not to look. She was shaking, whispering a prayer to a moon that didn't listen anymore. The heavy doors closed behind her, and her footsteps faded into silence. One by one they took the others. Some never came back. The ones who did returned with their eyes empty, branded with the sigil of their new master. By the time they called my name, my throat had gone dry. "Arya Duskbane," the handler barked. "Move!" My legs felt numb as I stood. Everyone turned away. No one wanted to meet my eyes. The cursed daughter of the Duskbane line. My father's rebellion had ended in blood, and my family name was poison. The guards led me down a corridor lit by torches. The air smelled of rain and rust. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it would betray me. When we reached the main chamber, the roar of the crowd hit like thunder. Hundreds of people filled the hall. Alphas, betas, nobles. Men and women wearing silk and jewels, their faces glowing with greed. The auctioneer, a tall man with gray hair slicked back like oil, raised his hand. "Lot 23, he announced. "Arya Duskbane, age 20, unmated, verified bloodline of the Duskbane pack. Cursed blood but pure." A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Cursed. Always that word. I stared at the polished floorboards and tried not to tremble. The lights above the stage were blinding. "Starting bid," the auctioneer said. 100 gold pieces. Silence. He cleared his throat. 80 then. 50. Still nothing. I could feel their stares, the judgment in their scent. Disgust, curiosity, even fear. "She's damaged goods," someone whispered. "Her father's madness runs in her blood. Put her to work in the mines," another voice said, amused. The auctioneer's tone grew sharper. 30 gold pieces. My hand shook. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor. The guards exchanged looks. One leaned in and muttered, "No one's going to buy her." The auctioneer sighed and lifted his gavel. "If there are no offers, she'll be sent to 500 gold pieces." The voice came from the back. Deep, calm, and commanding enough to silence the entire room. Every head turned. He stood in the shadows, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark cloak clasped with a silver wolf emblem. His face was half hidden, but his eyes glowed amber even from across the hall. The auctioneer stammered, Your Majesty." A murmur swept through the crowd. "Alpha King." My breath caught. King Cale Nightbane, the man who had destroyed my father, the conqueror of every rival pack in the north. He repeated, 500. "Do I need to say it again?" "No, Your Majesty," the auctioneer said quickly. 500 gold pieces. Going once, going twice, sold. The gavel struck. The sound echoed through my bones. My mind went blank. The king himself had bought me, the last Duskbane, the daughter of his enemy. The guards pushed me forward, and the crowd parted as if afraid to be too close. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I risked a glance at him. Cale Nightbane towered above the others, his expression unreadable. His hair was black as ink, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. When his gaze met mine, I felt my wolf stir inside me for the first time in years. Terrified me. He didn't speak as he turned and strode from the hall, only gesturing for me to follow. I wanted to run, but where would I go? The handler shoved me. You heard the king. Move. Outside, the rain was falling in sheets, the cobblestones shining like mirrors. A black carriage waited, pulled by two massive night-colored horses. The royal crest, a wolf beneath a crescent moon, gleamed on its door. Cale opened it himself. Get in. I hesitated, soaking wet, shivering. His voice dropped lower. Don't make me repeat myself. Climbed inside. The door shut behind me with a heavy click, and the world outside disappeared. The inside of the carriage smelled of leather and pine smoke. Velvet seats, dark red like dried blood, lined the walls. Raindrops pattered against the windows, soft and steady. King Cale sat across from me. His arms crossed over his chest, watching in silence. For a long time neither of us spoke. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Finally I said, "Why did you buy me?" His amber eyes narrowed slightly. "You sound disappointed." "I just don't understand," I said. "You killed my father. You destroyed my pack. Now you've bought me like property. What could you possibly want from me?" Cale's expression didn't change, but his voice turned sharp. "Watch your tone." "I'm not afraid of you," I lied. One corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. "Yes, you are." The silence that followed was heavy. The sound of the rain filled it. He leaned back, his cloak shifting as he moved. Beneath it, I glimpsed a sword with runes etched along its blade. The air around him shimmered faintly with power. His wolf was strong, so strong that mine whimpered inside me. Cale's gaze dropped to the pendant at my throat. "Where did you get that?" I covered it instinctively. "It was my mother's." "Moonstone," he murmured. "Old magic. Do you know what it means?" I shook my head. He studied me for a moment longer, then looked away. "Of course you don't. Your father hid everything from you." His words sent a chill through me. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a flask from his belt and drank, then offered it to me. I hesitated. "It's just water," he said dryly. I took a cautious sip. Cool and clean, not poisoned. When I handed it back, his fingers brushed mine. A spark shot up my arm, hot and electric. Flinched. Cale's eyes darkened. "You felt that, didn't you?" "I don't know what you're talking about." He leaned forward slightly. "Your wolf recognizes mine." I shook my head. "That's not possible. My wolf hasn't spoken to me in years." "Then she's waking up," he said quietly. Something in his tone, almost gentle but not quite, made me uneasy. I turned my face to the window. Outside, the forest rolled past in a blur of silver rain and dark trees. After a while I said, "Everyone says you're cursed. They say many things. Is it true?" He met my gaze, his eyes burning like firelight. "Yes." The honesty in that single word startled me. "What kind of curse?" I asked before I could stop myself. "The kind that kills every Nightbane king before he reaches 30, he said simply. "And I turn 30 in 2 months." I stared at him. "And you think I can help you?" "I don't think," he said. "I know." I laughed nervously. "You must be desperate." He tilted his head. "You think I bought you out of desperation, didn't you?" For a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes. Amusement, maybe even admiration. Then it was gone. "I bought you," he said softly, "because your bloodline is older than mine. Older than any other pack. And because your mother was the last of her kind." "My mother." My voice trembled. "She died when I was a baby." "She died," he said, "because someone wanted her power. You carry what she carried, Arya. Whether you believe it or not." I shook my head. "You're wrong. I'm nothing. I'm nobody." Cale leaned forward. his voice dropping to a whisper. "You are everything I've been searching for." My breath caught. The carriage slowed as we approached the palace gates. Through the rain, I saw towering walls of black stone and silver flame torches burning along the ramparts. The gates opened silently, and the horses carried us through. As we entered the courtyard, I noticed the guards bowing their heads. No one dared meet Cale's eyes. His power filled the air like a storm about to break. When the carriage stopped, he opened the door and stepped out first. Then he extended his hand to me. I hesitated again. The last time I had taken a man's hand, it had been to be led in chains. Cale's voice softened slightly. "I don't bite. Not unless you give me reason to." It wasn't exactly comforting, but something in his tone made me take his hand anyway. His skin was warm despite the cold rain, and for an instant the world seemed to hum around us. He led me toward the palace steps. Servants hurried to open the great doors, bowing low. Inside the air was warmer, scented with smoke and pine. The floors gleamed like mirrors, and chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, catching the light like stars. Cale turned to one of the servants. "Prepare chambers in the east wing. She stays there." "Yes, your majesty." The servant bowed and hurried away. Cale looked at me again, his expression unreadable. "You'll find the east wing quiet. No one goes there." "Why?" "Yes." He paused, then said, "Because it's where the dead are buried." A shiver ran through me. Without another word, he turned and strode up the staircase toward a pair of massive doors. I stood there, unsure whether to follow or flee. The servant who'd been waiting nearby gestured nervously. "This way, my lady." I wanted to laugh. "My lady." That was a cruel joke. But I followed. As we walked through the echoing corridors, I caught sight of portraits, kings and queens with golden eyes and cruel smiles. At the end of the hall, a window overlooked the storm outside. Lightning flashed, illuminating the mountains beyond. I thought of Cale's words. "You carry what she carried." My mother's pendant felt heavy against my skin. When I reached my room, the servant lit the candles and bowed before leaving me alone. I sank onto the bed, shaking from exhaustion and fear. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. I whispered to the silence, "What do you want from me, Cale Nightbane?" There was no answer, only the faint sound of the wind through the mountains, and the sense, deep in my bones, that whatever he wanted was already bound to me. I woke to the sound of distant bells and the scent of rain-soaked pine. For a moment I forgot where I was. The bed beneath me was soft, too soft, and the silk sheets were warmer than anything I had known since the fall of my family. Then it all came back. The auction, the king, the carriage through the storm. I sat up quickly. My clothes from the night before were gone, replaced with a long gray dress hanging neatly by the wardrobe. The walls of the room were carved stone, veined with silver. A tall window looked out over mist-covered mountains that stretched forever. Someone had been here while I slept. Quiet knock startled me. Before I could answer, a woman entered. A servant not much older than me, with copper hair and calm eyes. She carried a tray of food. "Good morning, my lady," she said softly. "I'm not a lady." Her smile didn't fade. "In this palace, you are whatever the king says you are. He's asked that you eat before he summons you." "I'm not hungry." She set the tray down anyway. "Eat," she said gently. "You'll need your strength." There was something in her tone that made me listen. I ate in silence. Fresh bread, berries, tea that tasted faintly of mint and smoke. When I finished, she took the tray. "The king will see you in the training yard when you're ready. The east wing's back hall leads there. Don't take any other corridor." I frowned. "Why not?" Her expression tightened. Some doors in this palace were meant to stay closed. And then she left, shutting the door behind her. The hall outside was silent. Shadows pooled along the corners, and portraits watched with painted eyes. I followed the passage until it opened onto a courtyard. The yard was enormous. Rings of stone, archways draped in vines, a raised platform at the center. Soldiers sparred in pairs, their movements sharp and disciplined. The sound of steel on steel echoed off the walls. At the far side stood Kale. He wasn't wearing his crown or cloak today. Only a black shirt rolled at the sleeves, his hands wrapped in leather. He was sparring with two men at once, and even watching him felt dangerous. His movements were smooth, almost lazy, but every strike landed with precision. When he noticed me, he ended the fight with one last twist of his sword, disarming both opponents. The men bowed and stepped back. Kale turned toward me, breathing evenly despite the exertion. "You slept well." "I wasn't given a choice," I said. He smiled faintly. "You're honest. I'll have to decide whether that's refreshing or foolish." I crossed my arms. "Why am I here?" "To see for yourself that you're not a prisoner." I glanced around. Guards lined the edges of the courtyard, their eyes fixed on us. "It doesn't feel like freedom." Kale wiped his blade and sheathed it. "Freedom is a word people use when they don't understand power." "Is that what you think you have? Power?" He stepped closer and the air seemed to thicken. "I know I do." The intensity in his gaze made it hard to breathe. His eyes weren't merely amber. They burned, alive with something primal that stirred my wolf again, restless under my skin. "Your wolf stirs when I'm near," he said quietly. "I can feel it." Backed up a step. "Stay away from me." "I could," he said, "but you wouldn't learn anything from that." "Learn what?" "What you are." Before I could reply, he nodded toward one of the guards. The man tossed him another sword, lighter, shorter, its edge dulled for training. Kale held it out to me. "Take it." I stared at him. "I don't know how to fight." "Then now is the perfect time to start." I said no. He tilted his head as if amused. "Are you refusing your king's command?" I clenched my fists. "You may have bought me, but you don't own me." He studied me for a long moment, then said, "Then prove it." The sword hit the ground at my feet with a dull clang. I hesitated, then picked it up. It felt heavier than it looked. Kale moved into position, one hand behind his back, the other gripping his blade loosely. "Come at me." I shook my head. "You'd tear me apart. Then you'll learn quickly." I took a breath and swung. He blocked easily, barely moving. I tried again, faster, but he sidestepped, catching my wrist in one hand. "Too slow," he said, releasing me. Again. Frustration burned through me. I struck harder, angrier. This time, the blades met with a shower of sparks. The vibration jolted through my arms. Kale grinned. "Better." I hit again. He parried, then spun the sword from my grasp so smoothly it was almost elegant. The weapon clattered across the stones. In 2 steps, he was in front of me, the tip of his sword at my collarbone. "Lesson 1, he said quietly. "Never fight with anger. It clouds your instincts." I glared at him. "And lesson 2. His eyes flicked to the pendant at my throat. "Never hide your power." Before I could react, his hand shot out and closed over the pendant. The moonstone flared with sudden light, silver and blue. The air between us pulsed like a heartbeat. I gasped as a rush of warmth flooded my chest. Images flashed in my mind. Moonlight, blood, a woman's voice whispering my name. Then it was gone. Kale stepped back, his jaw tight. "Just as I thought." "What was that?" I demanded, pressing a hand to my chest. "Your mother's magic," he said. "It recognizes you. You had no right." "I have every right," he cut in, his tone sharp again. "You think I bought you because I wanted a pretty slave? You're here because your blood carries something ancient. Something that could break the curse on my line, or doom us both." I stared at him. "You're insane." He didn't deny it. "Perhaps. But you'll learn soon enough that madness and power are often the same thing." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and rain. He turned away. "Training is over for today. Rest." Tomorrow, you'll learn control. I wanted to shout after him to demand answers, but he was already walking back toward the palace, the guards falling into step behind him. As I watched him go, a strange ache bloomed in my chest. Not fear, not hatred, something heavier. Something I didn't want to name. That night I couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but thunder still rumbled far away. I sat by the window, tracing the moonstone pendant with my thumb. When I closed my eyes, I could still feel the warmth of Cale's hand and hear that whisper. My mother's voice, soft and sorrowful. The curse that binds him binds you. I didn't know what it meant, but it kept echoing in my mind until dawn. Morning light spilled through the tall windows, pale and cold. The same copper-haired servant, her name was Lyra, I had learned, brought breakfast and a change of clothes. The king requests your presence in the great hall, she said. Requests, echoed. Her lips curved faintly. With his majesty, that word means orders. I dressed quickly. The gown she brought was deep green, trimmed in silver thread. It fit perfectly, though I'd never been measured. When I asked how they knew my size, Lyra only said, "The king notices details." The great hall was vast. Columns of black marble, banners of silver wolves, and a throne carved from obsidian. Cale sat upon it, a half-circle of advisors standing nearby. They fell silent as I entered. Cale gestured for me to approach. "Arya Duskbane," he said, his voice echoing off the stone. "Daughter of the fallen pack. Do you know why you are here?" I lifted my chin. "Because you bought me." A few of the advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Cale's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Because your bloodline may hold the key to this kingdom's survival. There is unrest in the borderlands. My enemies think me weak because the curse grows stronger. I need answers, and I believe they lie in your family's past." "I don't know anything about curses or magic," I said. "If that's why you brought me here, you wasted your gold." Cale stood and descended the steps, his cloak trailing behind him like shadow. "Your mother, Lysara, was known as the moon-bound seer. She could see through time's veil. She vanished when you were a child, murdered or so they say. Your father blamed me. His rebellion followed. I swallowed hard. And you killed him." "I ended a war he started," Cale replied evenly. "But I never wanted his bloodline extinguished. You were hidden, weren't you? Kept from the world until the curse brought you back to me." I shook my head. "You speak in riddles." Cale's gaze softened just slightly. "Then listen. The curse that plagues my line began the night your mother died. I've spent years searching for her lost heir. You, Arya, are that heir." The words hit like a blow. "You're lying." "I never lie," he said quietly. "The truth hurts enough on its own." He turned to one of the advisors, a gray-bearded beta who carried a scroll. "Show her." The man unrolled the parchment, revealing an ancient prophecy written in silver ink. The script shimmered like moonlight. "When blood and shadow converge beneath the broken moon, the seer's child shall awaken. One shall fall for both to rise." I stared at the words until they blurred. "What does that mean?" "It means," Cale said, "that you and I are bound by fate. My shadow calls to your blood. Only one of us can survive what's coming." The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. I managed to whisper, "Why tell me this?" "Because I don't believe in destiny," he said. "And if I must defy it, I'll need your help." I searched his face for mockery but found none. His voice was low, almost human. One of the advisors spoke nervously. "Your Majesty, bringing her here was already risky. The council fears what her presence might." Cale's glance silenced him instantly. "The council will remember who holds the crown." He looked back at me. "Walk with me." We left the hall together, our footsteps echoing through the corridor. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, catching in his dark hair. "This palace," he said, "was built over the ruins of an older kingdom. Some say its stones remember. There are tunnels beneath, libraries of forgotten magic. You will study them. Why me? Because you carry her blood, he said simply. The same gift that once cursed my house may yet save it. I hesitated. And if I refuse? Kel stopped walking. Then I'll send you away. Free. His lips curved faintly. No one leaves the palace of night free. Not even me. We reached a balcony overlooking the valley below. Mist drifted between the trees like ghosts. Cale rested a hand on the railing. When I was a boy, he said quietly, I thought power meant never being afraid. But the older I grow, the more I understand. Power is only another kind of cage. For a moment he looked almost human. Then his voice hardened again. Go with Lyra. She'll show you the library. Learn everything you can about your mother's magic. Time is running short. As I turned to leave, he said softly. And Arya? I looked back. Don't hide that pendant again. It's the only thing keeping you alive. Back in my room, I sat by the window until dusk. The mountains glowed gold, fading to purple as the sun fell. Below, the torches of the courtyard flickered to life. I turned the pendant over in my hand. The moonstone caught the light, shining faintly blue. I whispered, Mother, if you can hear me. What did you leave me in this place? No answer came, but a breeze swept through the room, stirring the curtains. It carried the faintest whisper, words I could barely catch. The shadows remember, child. So must you. A chill ran down my spine. Somewhere deep within the palace, a wolf howled, and I realized it wasn't outside. It was inside the walls, inside me, awake for the first time in years. And it was calling the name of the man I was supposed to hate. The library of the Palace of Night was nothing like I expected. It wasn't just shelves and scrolls. It was a cathedral carved into the heart of the mountain. The walls shimmered faintly with veins of silver ore, and every step I took echoed like a whisper through time. Lyra led me down the spiraling staircase. Her torch threw long shadows over the stone. These archives are older than the kingdom itself, she said softly. Most of what's written here, even the scholars can't read anymore. I tried to hide the unease in my voice. And you think I can? She glanced back at me. The king does. We reached the bottom of the stairs. A set of heavy iron doors stood before us, marked with strange runes that pulsed faintly. Lyra touched one of them, and the metal rippled like water, then split open down the middle. I stepped inside and stopped breathing. Hundreds of candles floated in midair, their flames motionless. Books rested on pedestals of carved obsidian. The scent of ink, dust, and ancient parchment filled the air. In the center of the chamber stood Cale. He was leaning over a table, studying a piece of parchment, his dark hair falling across his forehead. He didn't look up as he said, "You're late." I stiffened. I wasn't told there was a time. There's always a time, he said. You just don't hear it until it's almost gone. I frowned. Is that supposed to mean something? He finally looked up and his gaze caught mine. Everything here means something. Even the silence. Lyra bowed quickly and retreated toward the door. Before she left, she pressed a hand briefly to my arm. Be careful, she whispered, then vanished into the stairway. Cale gestured for me to join him. Come here. I want to show you something. On the table lay a map drawn in silver ink. The edges of the parchment glowed faintly, like moonlight trapped under skin. This, Cale said, is the lineage of my family. The Nightbane line. He traced his finger down a series of symbols, each one representing a king. Every one of them died before their 30th year. My father lasted the longest, 29 years and 11 months. He thought he had beaten the curse. What curse? I asked quietly. Cale looked at me as though testing how much truth I could take. A curse born of betrayal. Long ago, one of my ancestors, King Arkon, fell in love with a seer, a woman bound to the moon like your mother's kind. The union was forbidden. The spirits warned them that light and shadow were never meant to mix. And they didn't listen. No, he said. They defied fate, married in secret, and conceived a child. But when the gods found out, they demanded payment. The seer sacrificed herself to save the child. The gods cursed the Nightbane bloodline. Each king would carry a piece of the shadow she died to contain. If it ever escaped, it would consume them and everything they ruled. I stared at him. And you think that shadow is real? He smiled grimly. It's not a story to me, Arya. It's the thing that breathes in my veins. He rolled up his sleeve, and for the first time, I saw the dark lines etched across his skin. Not tattoos, something deeper. They pulsed faintly, like veins filled with black fire. What is that? The curse, he said simply. It grows stronger with every full moon. Eventually it will reach my heart. I felt a strange pull in my chest. Fear, pity, and something else. And you think I can stop it? I don't think, Kale said softly. I know. He turned away, picking up a small dagger from the table. Its hilt was carved with runes similar to the ones on the door. Your mother once tried to lift this curse. She failed. But before she died, she said her daughter would finish what she began. My mother never spoke of any of this, I whispered. She couldn't, Kale said. Your father forbade it. He hated what she was, what you are. Anger flared in me. You don't know him. I know he died screaming my name, Kale said, his voice suddenly hard. But if it makes you feel better, he wasn't the first to curse me with his dying breath. He stepped closer, and for a moment, the air between us seemed alive, vibrating with unspoken things. What do you want from me? He asked. He reached out, brushing his fingertips against the moonstone pendant at my throat. Your mother's blood awakened it when I touched it yesterday. It's not just a keepsake, Arya. It's a key. A key to what? To the seal that binds the shadow, he said. And the seal is breaking. I swallowed hard. Then what happens when it breaks? Kale's amber eyes glowed faintly in the candlelight. Then the gods get what they wanted, the end of my line. Silence hung between us for a long moment. Finally he said, You'll train with me every morning from now on. The pendant's reacting to your emotions. If you don't learn to control it, it will destroy you and me. I wanted to refuse, but something in his voice stopped me. Beneath the command there was fear. Fine, I said. But if I'm doing this, I want answers. All of them. Kale nodded once. Then you'd better learn quickly. That night I dreamed of the moon. It hung huge and blood-red above a field of snow, its light spilling across a figure standing in the distance. A woman with silver hair and eyes like mine. She smiled sadly. The shadow always finds its vessel, she whispered. But the vessel can choose how it breaks. When I woke, the moonstone pendant was glowing faintly blue against my chest. Kale was waiting for me at dawn. The courtyard was cold, the ground glittering with frost. I wrapped his black cloak tighter around me. He'd left it outside my door sometime in the night. Good, he said when he saw me. You're early. I couldn't sleep. Then you'll learn faster. He tossed me a practice sword. Show me what you remember from yesterday. He scowled. Mostly you knocking the sword out of my hand. Then try again. I did. We fought until the sun rose higher, until my arms ached and my breath came in ragged bursts. Kale didn't hold back. Every strike was a test, every parry a question I didn't know how to answer. When I slipped and fell, he caught my wrist before I hit the ground. The moment our skin touched, a jolt of energy shot through me. I gasped and pulled back, staring in shock. Faint silver lines had appeared on my forearm, curling shapes, glowing softly before fading again. Kale's expression changed. He grabbed my hand, turning it toward the light. It's happening. What is? The seer's marks, he said. Your mother had the same. It means your power is waking. I stepped away, shaking my head. No, I'm not her. I don't want this. Want has nothing to do with it, he said, his voice low. The gift chooses. You can't run from it. Watch me. I turned and started toward the archway, but his voice stopped me. If you leave, the power will break loose. You'll tear yourself apart before the day ends. Froze. You're lying. Look at your arm, he said. The marks had begun to glow again, brighter now, pulsing with my heartbeat. The air around me shimmered. I felt something rising inside, heat, light, pressure. The world tilted. Kale was suddenly beside me, his hands on my shoulders. Breathe. Don't fight it. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice softened, almost gentle. Close your eyes. Focus on my voice. I did. Slowly, the burning inside me eased. The glow on my skin faded. When I opened my eyes, Kale was still holding me, his breath warm against my hair. You're not cursed, he said quietly. You're becoming what you were meant to be. I stepped back, my heart racing. You talk like you know what that means. I do, he said. Your mother taught me once. Before your father took her away. I blinked, stunned. You knew her. He hesitated, then nodded. She saved my life when I was a boy. She was different. She saw the shadow long before the rest of us. Then why didn't you save her? His jaw tightened. Because by the time I tried, it was already too late. For the first time, I saw pain flicker across his face. Raw and human. He turned away. That's enough for today. I wanted to press him for more, but the look in his eyes warned me not to. As I headed back toward the east wing, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a puddle. The faintest traces of silver still shimmered beneath my skin, like moonlight buried in flesh. Later that evening, I stood by my window, staring at the rising moon. My body still ached from training, but beneath the pain was something else. A thrum of energy, alive and restless. When I touched the pendant, warmth spread through my palm. My mother's voice echoed faintly in my mind. The shadow will come for you, but you are not its prey. Outside, the courtyard was empty except for one figure standing alone in the torchlight, Kale. His head was tilted toward the sky, his face pale in the moon's glow. The dark lines on his arm had spread further. Without thinking, I whispered through the glass, "What are you doing to us?" As if hearing me, he looked up. Even from that distance, our eyes met. His glowing amber, mine reflecting the moonlight. Something in me shifted. Fear and fascination tangled together until I couldn't tell them apart. Because whatever curse bound him, it was starting to bind me too. Morning broke pale and cold over the palace. I found Kale waiting at the training yard again, his cloak drawn tight against the wind. He said nothing at first, just watched me approach, eyes unreadable. "You didn't sleep," he said at last. "You watch everyone that closely. Only the dangerous ones." "I'm not dangerous." He looked at me for a long time. "You will be." He handed me a dagger instead of a sword. The blade was shorter, curved, its metal dark as storm clouds. "This belonged to your mother," he said. "She left it here before she died." I traced the runes etched along its edge. "Why give it to me now?" "Because the people in my court have started asking why you're here. Someone has already tried to send word beyond the mountains." His voice hardened. "You'll learn to defend yourself before they decide to test you." I hesitated. "You think someone in your own palace wants to kill me?" "I know someone does." Kale drew his sword and motioned to the ring. "Come." We circled each other. My breath came out in puffs of mist. He moved like water, effortless, every step deliberate. When I lunged, he deflected easily, turning my own momentum against me. "Your thoughts are too loud," he said. "You move before you decide. You think before you move. Either way, you lose." "I'm trying." "Don't try," he snapped. "Listen. Let the wolf move before you do." Something in his tone struck a chord. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. The world around me grew sharper. The whisper of wind through the trees, the slow thump of Kale's heartbeat. When I moved again, it was instinct. Our blades met, ringing once, twice. He grinned, surprised. "Better." For a moment I forgot fear and anger. I felt alive, wild, fast, untouchable. When he finally disarmed me, I was laughing, breathless. Then his smile vanished. Enough. He looked toward the walls. The sky had dimmed though the sun was still high, as if a cloud had passed before it. The air smells wrong, he murmured. What is it? Shadow. Before I could ask more, a horn sounded in the distance. Cale turned to one of the guards. Double the watch. No one enters or leaves without my command. The guard bowed and ran. Cale faced me again. Stay in your chambers tonight. Lock the door. If anyone comes for you, anyone but me, run. I swallowed hard. You think it's the curse. I think it's what comes with it. His voice was quiet now. The thing that killed my father hunts me again. It feeds on fear, and it wants the blood of the seer. My blood. He nodded once. Don't let it find you unarmed. That night I did as he said. I barred the door and kept my mother's dagger beneath my pillow. Sleep came in fragments, full of whispers and shifting shapes. When the moon reached its height, a chill wind swept through the room. The candles flickered, their flames bending toward the window. And faintly, from somewhere deep in the palace, I heard a low growl. Too long, too hollow to belong to any wolf. The pendant at my throat pulsed once, bright as lightning. Then the whisper came. The shadow remembers. I sat upright, heart pounding. Through the window, I saw a figure moving across the courtyard. Tall, dark, wrong. It stopped, turned its face upward, and though there were no eyes, I felt it look straight at me. A hand closed over my mouth from behind. I twisted, ready to fight, but the scent, smoke and pine, told me before I saw him. Oh, quiet, he breathed. It can't cross the walls yet. But it's close. He pulled me back from the window. For the first time, his control cracked. There was fear in his eyes. You weren't supposed to see it. What is it? The curse given form, he said. The shadowed king. The part of my line that refuses to die. He looked at the pendant. It came because it felt you wake. I shook my head. Then you should send me away. That's exactly what it wants, he said. You run, it follows. Feeds. Well, you stay here with me. He hesitated, then added quietly. You're safer in my shadow than alone in the dark. By dawn, the palace was sealed. Guards stood at every gate. The air itself felt heavy. Cale didn't speak to anyone as we crossed the courtyard. He moved quickly, the hood of his cloak up, his hand resting on his sword. Where are we going? I asked. To the only place the shadow can't enter, he said. The tomb of the moonbound. We descended through corridors I hadn't seen before. Narrow tunnels that smelled of stone and frost. Torches burned with blue fire, lighting carvings on the walls. Wolves, moons, women with eyes like stars. The seers who served my ancestors are buried here, Cale said. Your mother's name was carved among them after the war, though her body was never found. At the bottom, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber lit by the cold glow of crystals. In the center stood a stone slab shaped like an altar. The walls were lined with sarcophagi, each marked with a crescent moon. I moved closer. This place feels alive. It remembers, Cale said quietly. The seers bound their power here so it would never fade. On the slab lay an open book, its pages untouched by dust. The letters shimmered faintly. My fingers brushed the cover, and the runes flared to life. Cale caught my wrist. Careful. The words of a seer are living things. But the book had already opened itself. Across the page, silver script formed and twisted into lines I could read without knowing how. The blood of the moon shall meet the blood of the shadow. One shall bind, one shall break. And the world will tremble between them. I looked up at Cale. This is the prophecy, isn't it? Part of it. He looked away. The rest is lost or hidden. Hidden by who? Your mother. The words sank in slowly. She hid it here. He nodded. And she left something else. A warning. He crossed to one of the sarcophagi. brushing away the frost from its lid. Beneath the thin ice, the carved name gleamed, Lysara Duskbane. My breath caught. Mother! Cale pressed his palm against the stone. This is what I wanted you to see. Her spirit still guards this place. I knelt beside the sarcophagus. The air around it pulsed faintly, like the beat of a slow heart. When I touched the carved name, the pendant at my throat burned hot. The room filled with light. A figure rose from the stone, a woman made of moonlight and mist. Her eyes found mine, and I knew her even though I'd never seen her before. Arya, she said, her voice soft as water. My little wolf. I couldn't breathe. Mother. Cale dropped to one knee, head bowed. The spirit's gaze lingered on him, calm but sad. You kept your promise, Cale Nightbane. He looked up slowly. I tried. Her hand brushed my cheek. The curse cannot be destroyed by blood alone. It must be chosen, light and shadow, bound together willingly. Only then will the gods release their hold. I don't understand, I whispered. What does that mean? It means, Cale said quietly, that one of us must die for the other to live. My mother's spirit nodded. The prophecy will demand balance. You cannot run from it, child. But you can choose what it takes. Tears blurred my vision. There has to be another way. Perhaps, she said. The heart often finds paths the gods cannot see. Her form began to fade, light scattering like dust. Remember, Arya, the shadow is not only his. Sleeps in you too. Don't let it wake before the moon decides. And she was gone. Silence filled the tomb. Cale stood slowly, his face pale. Now you know. I turned on him. You knew she was here. You brought me to hear that. So I'd accept whatever fate you've already decided. I brought you here so you'd understand why I can't let you die, he said. The curse doesn't want me dead, Arya. It wants you. If it takes you, it wins. Then what happens to you? He didn't answer. I stepped closer, angry now. You talk about protecting me, but every time I learn something new, it's because you've hidden it first. You want control. That's all this is. Cale's eyes flashed. You think I wanted this bond? You think I enjoy knowing that every breath you take pulls me closer to the edge? You are the light that burns through my veins, and the shadow hates it. He turned away, voice low. If I lose control, you'll die. Do you understand? That's not control, Arya. That's chains. The air between us crackled. Fear, anger, something deeper neither of us could name. Finally, he said, go back to your chambers. Stay away from the tomb unless I'm with you. The shadow won't stop here. It will look for cracks, for weakness. And what about you? Yes. You're covered in cracks already. He smiled without humor. Then let's hope I hold long enough to teach you how to live without me. Back in the east wing, I stared out the window until the torches burned low. The pendant no longer glowed, but a faint hum lingered beneath my skin, echoing my heartbeat. I thought of the look on Cale's face when my mother spoke. Fear, guilt, and something that felt too much like love. Outside, the clouds shifted, and a sliver of moonlight fell across the courtyard. In that light, I could almost see the shadow moving again, circling, waiting, patient as hunger itself. I whispered into the dark. You won't have him. Somewhere in the depths of the palace, a wolf howled, low, aching, defiant, and I realized it came from Cale's chambers. The sound wrapped around me like a promise. Whatever curse bound us, whatever darkness hunted us, neither of us was running anymore. The days that followed blurred together. Training, study, sleepless nights filled with whispers I didn't understand. The shadow didn't return, but I could feel it, circling the palace like a storm that refused to break. Cale was different too. He trained me harder, longer. Every command was sharp, every word edged with something unspoken. Yet sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking, I caught that flicker of worry in his eyes, the same look my mother used to give me before a fever took hold. One morning, as frost coated the courtyard stones, Cale said, "Enough for today." I lowered my sword, panting. "You're going easy on me. I'm testing your patience, not your strength." You're failing, I said before I could stop myself. The corner of his mouth lifted. Good. Anger is a better weapon than fear, if you know how to wield it. He took a step closer and something in the air changed. The usual distance between us vanished. He was too close. Close enough that I could see the faint shadows crawling beneath his skin, faint lines that pulsed with a life of their own. Your pulse quickens when I'm near, he said softly. Because you make me angry. Because you feel what I feel. His gaze dropped to the moonstone pendant resting against my collarbone. It glowed faintly, mirroring the gold in his eyes. For a moment neither of us spoke. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then he turned away sharply. You should rest. Running again. Yes. He stopped, shoulders stiff. You think this is a game, Arya. You think what binds us is something we can play with. I don't know what to think. One moment you tell me I'm the key to saving you, and the next you act like touching me will destroy you. He faced me slowly, the faint light outlining the scar that ran down his jaw. It might. I took a step toward him anyway. Then stop pretending you don't want to. He caught my wrist before I could reach him. The touch burned, not painful but bright, alive. The markings on my arm flared in answer, silver against my skin. Kale let go as if burned. That's why I can't. Before I could speak, a shout echoed across the courtyard. A guard came running, face pale. Your Majesty, the council demands an audience. They've gathered in the high chamber. Kale swore under his breath. Of course they have. He turned to me. Stay here. I'm coming. He hesitated, clearly wanting to refuse, but then nodded once. Then keep silent and watch. The high chamber sat above the throne hall, a circle of stone lit by cold blue fire. 12 elders stood waiting, their robes heavy with the sigils of the kingdom. As we entered they bowed, but not deeply. One of them, an old man with silver hair and sharp eyes, spoke first. Your Majesty, we've heard disturbing rumors. Kale's voice was calm. Rumors rarely deserve attention. This one does, the man said. They say you keep the Duskbane girl alive in the palace. That you train her. That you intend to make her queen. The room fell silent. Kale's jaw tightened. The council forgets its place. Another elder, a woman with a serpent ring, stepped forward. We only wish to protect the throne. The blood of the cursed line should not sit beside yours. My fists clenched, but I held my tongue as Kale had warned. He said quietly, without her blood there will be no throne left to protect. The curse is older than your council, older than any law you serve. The first elder sneered. So you believe the prophecy. You put your faith in a girl who should have died with her traitor father. Kale's power rolled through the chamber like thunder. The torches flickered, the stone groaned. Watch your tongue. The elder fell silent, his face pale. Kale turned and strode for the door. This council is dismissed. I'll hear no more of your fear disguised as wisdom. I followed him into the hall. His hands were shaking slightly. They'll move against you, I said. I know. Then let me help. You already are, he said. By staying alive. He started down the stairs, but I caught his arm. Kale. He looked at me then, all the armor gone from his expression. You think I don't want to be near you. Every moment I am, the curse claws deeper into me. It wants to bind us, to make me take what isn't mine. If I let it, it wins. Maybe it isn't trying to break you, I said softly. Maybe it's trying to make you whole. He stared at me for a long moment, then said quietly, You sound like her. My mother. He nodded. She said the same thing before she died. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the cold corridor, wondering which of us the curse would choose first. That night I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he looked at me like I was both salvation and ruin. The way his hand had lingered just a heartbeat too long. I dreamed again, the red moon, the field of snow, my mother's voice whispering, The heart will choose. When I woke, I was no longer sure whose side the gods were on. The announcement came 3 days later. A masquerade in honor of the kingdom's founding. Every noble house would attend. Lyra helped lace my dress, a deep blue gown that shimmered with silver thread. "The king ordered this for you," she said. I touched the fabric. "Why would he do that?" "He wants them to see you," she said simply. "To remind them that he chooses what the throne fears most." When I entered the great hall that night, every conversation stopped. The chandeliers burned with golden fire. Music swelled from a balcony above. Masks glittered on every face. But I could feel the weight of every gaze on me. Cale stood at the top of the staircase. His mask was black and gold. His eyes visible behind it, those same burning amber eyes that seemed to see everything. He extended a hand. "My lady." I hesitated only a second before placing my hand in his. The music shifted as he led me down the steps to the center of the floor. The crowd parted. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. He leaned close enough that only I could hear. "Because they need to see what they can't control." The orchestra swelled. He guided me into the dance, every movement precise and deliberate. His hand at my waist was steady, firm, unyielding. I followed without thinking, the rhythm pulling us both. Whispers rippled around the room. I caught fragments. "The cursed girl, the king's witch. She'll doom us all." Cale's voice cut through them softly. "Ignore them." "I'm trying." He spun me once, twice. "You're trembling." "I'm surrounded by people who want me dead. Why wouldn't I?" He smiled faintly. "Because none of them can touch you while I breathe." The words sent a strange warmth through me. The music slowed, the world narrowing to just us. The echo of our steps, the heat of his hand, the steady thrum of power between us. When the final note faded, no one clapped. They only stared. Cale bowed slightly, still holding my gaze. "The king may own the crown," he said softly. "But tonight, you own the room." He led me from the floor and into one of the empty corridors beyond. The noise of the hall faded behind us. "You shouldn't have done that," I said. "Why?" "Because they'll hate me even more now." "They already did." He removed his mask and looked at me, truly looked. "You've spent your life hiding from their hatred. Stop giving it power." I didn't know how to answer. The torches along the walls flickered as the wind shifted. Cale's expression changed. His eyes narrowing. "Stay behind me," he murmured. A shadow slid across the floor ahead. At first, I thought it was only the torchlight, but then it moved against the flame, darker than dark. Cale drew his sword. "It's inside the palace." The shadow rose into a shape that was almost human, its edges shifting like smoke. A voice, low and cold, filled the corridor. "You cannot bind what was born unbound." Cale stepped forward, sword gleaming with faint silver light. "You're early." The thing laughed, a sound that wasn't laughter at all. "Your heart brought me here, Nightbane. It beats for the moon blood. The seal weakens." Lunged. Cale met it head-on, steel cutting through mist. The impact shattered the nearest torch, plunging the hall into darkness. "Run!" he shouted. But I didn't. Instead, I reached for the pendant. It burned hot against my palm, the silver markings on my arm flaring bright. Light poured from my hand, pure white, alive. The shadow screamed, its shape twisting. Cale caught my arm. "Enough!" The light faded. The shadow dissolved into smoke and vanished through the cracks in the wall. For a moment, there was only the sound of our breathing. Cale's hand still held mine, his chest rising and falling fast. "You disobeyed me. You'd be dead if I hadn't." He laughed once, low and tired. "You're right." He sheathed his sword. "But next time, wait until I tell you to be reckless." I smiled despite the tremor in my hands. "You're welcome." He looked at me for a long time, then said softly, "You shine too brightly for a world like this. And you hide too much for a king." "Perhaps," he said. "But not from you." The words lingered between us like a promise neither of us dared speak aloud. Outside, the bells began to toll, announcing midnight. Somewhere deep in the mountains, thunder rolled. The blood moon would rise soon, and whatever bond had begun between us was growing stronger with every beat of the cursed king's heart. The morning after the masquerade, the palace was too quiet. The air carried a heaviness, as if every stone waited for something to happen. I woke to the dull ache of exhaustion and to the sound of rain hammering the window. Lyra entered, her face pale. "You should stay inside today," she said while setting down my breakfast. "The council meets again, and their mood is foul." "They're angry because of last night," I guessed. "They're frightened," she corrected. "The shadow attacked inside the walls. No one will say it aloud, but everyone knows what it means." That Kale was losing control. Across to the window, the courtyard below swarmed with soldiers. Every banner had been lowered to half-mast. "He told me the palace was safe," I murmured. Lyra hesitated. "Safety has never been the same thing as peace." She bowed and left before I could ask more. By midday, I couldn't bear the silence. I left my chambers, walking the corridors that wound like veins through the east wing. Most of the servants avoided my eyes. Only a few nodded, hurried, frightened. When I reached the old gallery, the scent of smoke stopped me. Kale was there, standing before a window cracked open to the rain. A scroll burned in his hand. The firelight threw wild shadows across his face. "What are you doing?" I asked. He turned. "Cleaning." I stepped closer. That looked like a royal decree. It was. His voice was flat. "One that would have sent you far from here under guard. The council tried to sign it behind my back." My stomach twisted. "They wanted me gone. They want me alone," he said. "It's easier to break a curse if you kill half of it." I took the ashes from his hand, letting them crumble into the wind. "You can't fight everyone, Kale." He smiled faintly. "I already do." That night the betrayal came. I woke with the taste of metal in my mouth and the smell of bitter herbs. The tray of wine Lyra had brought before dusk sat empty beside the bed. The room swayed. My heartbeat slowed to a sluggish crawl. "Prison." I staggered toward the door, but my legs folded. The world blurred to darkness. When I opened my eyes again, everything was distant, the ceiling spinning, a low voice somewhere near. "She'll be gone before morning," the voice said. "The king will think the curse took her." Another voice answered, trembling. "He'll kill us if he finds out. He'll never know. By dawn she'll be cold." Footsteps. The sound faded. I tried to move. My arms felt like stone. My vision flickered, and then someone was lifting me, the scent of pine and smoke wrapping around me like a storm. Kale's voice low and fierce. "Stay with me, Arya. Don't you dare close your eyes." The next thing I knew, I was lying on the floor of the library. Kale knelt beside me, his hands pressed against my neck. His power pouring into me. Heat, light, pain. The shadows on his skin pulsed like veins of fire. "Breathe," he commanded. I gasped, air cutting through my throat. The poison burned away, leaving ice behind. My vision cleared enough to see his face. Drawn, furious, afraid. "Who did this?" he asked. Could barely speak. "Servants. Someone from the council." He closed his eyes, rage trembling in his hands. "They wanted you dead. I told you they'd move against you," I whispered. Kale pressed his forehead against mine. "You were right." For a moment, neither of us moved. The storm outside rattled the windows, and the library lights flickered. He pulled away and stood. "Rest. I'll deal with them." "How?" "By reminding them who owns the crown." He was gone for hours. I waited by the window, the world outside drowning in thunder. When he finally returned, his cloak was soaked and his eyes burned with a cold fire. "It's done," he said. "What did you do?" "Justice." He wiped a streak of blood, not his own, from his sleeve. 3 men confessed before the end. The rest will think twice. I wanted to feel safe, but I didn't. You can't keep killing everyone who threatens me. I can, he said quietly. And I will. He turned away before I could answer. The poison almost took you from me, he said. That will not happen again. His hand brushed mine just once and I saw it, the fear behind the fury. Not the fear of losing control but of losing me. That night he posted guards outside my door, but I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his face in the lightning flashes. King and monster, savior and curse all at once. Somewhere deep inside, I knew the council's attempt had done more than fail. It had bound our fates tighter. Because when Kale killed for me, something ancient shifted, and the curse whispered my name like a vow. The next morning the rain stopped. Mist clung to the mountains, and the palace felt hollow, emptied of noise. Kale had not slept. I saw it in the bruise-like shadows under his eyes. He found me in the library, bent over my mother's old journal. You should be resting, he said. I've had enough of sleeping through danger. He almost smiled. You sound like a queen. I sound like someone who wants answers. I pushed the journal toward him. Read this. The page glowed faintly. It was a letter, my mother's hand, the words written in a graceful silver script. My daughter, if you read this, the moon has chosen you. The shadow seeks what it cannot create, a heart unafraid of it. When the blood eclipse rises, light and dark must meet willingly. One must fall for both to rise. Remember, the gods made no curse they could not envy. Kale read in silence, his jaw tightening. So it's true. It says one must fall, I said. Not which one. He looked up at me. You think I'd let it be you? It might not be your choice. Everything is my choice, he said sharply. Then softer. At least until it isn't. He closed the book. The blood eclipse comes in a fortnight. The shadow will try to reach full strength before then. If it does, neither of us will survive. I asked, what are you not telling me? He hesitated. There's another prophecy. One your mother never wrote down. Then how do you know it? Because she told me before she died. She said the seer's heir would save the Nightbane line, but only if she learned to love what she feared most. He met my eyes. That's me, Arya. I am what you were born to fear. I shook my head. You don't get to decide what I fear. You should, he said bitterly. It would make this easier. He turned and walked toward the window. Outside, clouds gathered dark and thick. Lightning flickered across the horizon. When the blood eclipse rises, he said, you'll go to the tomb of the moonbound. The ritual must be performed there. And you? I'll hold the shadow back as long as I can. You're talking like you've already decided how this ends, I said. What if the prophecy isn't about death at all? What if it's about choice? Kale's expression softened. Just for an instant. You have too much faith. Someone has to. He stepped closer, close enough that the faint heat of him pushed back the chill of the room. You keep dragging light into places built for darkness, he said. One day it will burn you. Maybe, I said. But it will burn you too. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, pride, something I couldn't name. You're not supposed to care for me. I tried not to, I said. It didn't work. He reached out as if to touch me, then stopped himself. When this is over, you'll wish you hadn't. That evening, Lyra found me in the gallery again. She looked uneasy. The council has scattered. Some fled in the night. Those who remain whisper that the king's shadow walks on its own. They're not wrong, I said. She hesitated. If the blood eclipse truly brings what he fears, you'll need allies. Not all who serve in this palace follow the council. I studied her. And you? I follow the moon, she said simply. Your mother once saved my life. I'll do the same for hers. She handed me a small charm, an iron ring shaped like a crescent. Wear this when the moon turns red. It will remind the light where to find you. Thank you, Lyra. She bowed and left. The ring was cold against my palm, but as soon as I slipped it on, It warmed, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. That night Cale came to my door. He looked exhausted, his eyes darker than ever. "The walls are trembling," he said. "The shadow grows restless. Then we face it together." He shook his head. "No. Tomorrow, I ride for the border to destroy what's left of the cult that feeds it. You'll stay here. You can't fight that alone. I've been fighting it alone my whole life." I stepped closer. "You don't have to anymore." He hesitated, as though the words reached somewhere he'd tried to keep sealed. Finally he said, "Then promise me one thing. If I don't return before the blood eclipse, you'll go to the tomb and finish what your mother began." I wanted to refuse, to say I'd follow him no matter what, but the look in his eyes stopped me. It was the same look he'd given me when he burned the council's decree, an edge of finality that felt too much like goodbye. "I promise," I said. He nodded once. "Then may the moon remember us kindly." He turned to leave, but I caught his arm. "Cale, come back." He didn't answer. The door closed behind him, and I was left alone with the silence and the sound of the wind clawing at the windows. When dawn came, the sky bled red. The first sign of the blood eclipse had already begun. In the distance, the horns of war echoed across the mountains. And deep within the palace walls, where light never reached, something stirred, a whisper rising through the stones, carrying the same words that had haunted my dreams. "One shall fall for both to rise." The sound of war arrived before dawn, a low rumble rolling across the mountains like thunder. From my window I could see the distant flash of fire beyond the hills where Cale had ridden. The blood eclipse had not yet risen, but the sky already glowed faintly red. The palace trembled with movement, soldiers rushing through the courtyards, messengers darting through halls. Everyone avoided my eyes. To them I was both curse and cause. Lyra came running up the stairs, breathless. "The border's fallen," she said. "The cult you spoke of, they've broken through the outer villages." My stomach turned cold. "And Cale?" "No one knows. His last message said the shadow itself has taken form. He's gone to face it." I grabbed my cloak. "Then I'm going to him." "You can't." Lyra blocked the door. "He gave orders. He's not here to enforce them." "Arya, listen to me," she said, her voice trembling. "If you leave the palace now, the shadow will find you before you find him. He's fighting to keep it away from you." I stopped breathing hard. Outside, thunder cracked again. If he dies, you'll still have to finish this," Lyra said quietly. "That's what he wanted." I hated how calm she sounded. "You talk like it's already over." "No," she said. "But the ending always comes faster than anyone wants." The day dragged into a restless dusk. I wandered the palace like a ghost, through halls empty of life and rooms where even the torches burned dim. The air was heavy, thick with the taste of metal. Every now and then I thought I heard whispers from the walls, the same words over and over. "The moon remembers. The shadow rises." When the sun finally sank, I went to the library. The map of the kingdom still lay on the table, its silver lines glowing faintly in the candlelight. My mother's journal rested beside it. I opened it, tracing the familiar script with shaking fingers. "When the shadow walks, the seer must walk too. For light alone cannot banish what it does not understand." "I understand," I whispered. "I just don't know how to stop it." The torches flickered. A chill swept through the room. When I looked up, a figure stood at the doorway, tall, cloaked, his face half hidden in shadow. "Cale!" The figure stepped into the light, and my heart stopped. It was him, but not him. His eyes glowed faintly red, the color of the dying sun, and dark veins crawled up his neck, pulsing with each heartbeat. "Arya," he said, his voice strained, as if fighting something inside him. "You shouldn't be here." I ran to him. "You're hurt. Don't." He caught my arm before I could touch him. The grip was too strong, too cold. "It's inside me now. The shadow's trying to finish what it started. We can fight it." He shook his head. "You don't understand. It doesn't want my death anymore. It wants yours. It's using me to get to you. The words hit like a blow. Then I'll stay, I said. If it wants me, it can take me instead. He flinched. Don't say that. I rode to keep you safe, not to trade places. You're my king, I whispered. But you're not my cage. For a heartbeat. His eyes softened, gold flickering through the red. Then he turned away. You need to go to the tomb. Finish the ritual before it's too late. You're coming with me. If I do, it'll find you faster. Then we'll fight it together. Cale looked at me for a long moment, torn between reason and something deeper. Finally he nodded. Then we go now. The moon's already bleeding. The journey to the tomb was a blur. Rain and wind and the sound of hooves pounding against the stones. Cale rode ahead, his cloak snapping in the storm. The mountains loomed like black teeth. The sky split with crimson light. When we reached the valley, the air was thick with fog. The old gate of the moon-bound tomb stood open. Inside, torches burned with unnatural blue flames. Cale dismounted, swaying slightly. The darkness on his skin had spread, twisting up his neck toward his jaw. Stay behind me, he said, drawing his sword. The moment we crossed the threshold, the air turned cold. Shadows crept along the walls like living things. At the far end of the chamber stood a figure waiting. Tall, cloaked in smoke, its voice both male and female, echoing in every direction. King Cale Nightbane, it said. You brought her to me. Cale's blade flared with silver light. You'll never touch her. The creature laughed, a sound like 1,000 voices speaking at once. She's already mine. You both are. Its shape shifted, and for a moment, I saw my mother's face reflected in its surface. Pale, serene, empty. My heart clenched. What are you? I whispered. I am what the gods left behind when they learned to fear their own power, it said. The shadow you call curse, the truth they tried to bury. Cale moved between us. You feed on fear. But she's not afraid anymore. Not yet, the shadow hissed. But she will be. The blood eclipse is almost here. The ground trembled. The ceiling cracked. Light spilled through the fissures above. Not sunlight but blood-red moonlight. The eclipse had begun. Cale turned to me. The ritual, start it now. I reached for the pendant. The silver marks on my arms flared to life, burning bright. My mother's voice echoed faintly in my mind. When the blood and shadow unite, the seal will open. Choose the hand that binds it shut. I don't know how, I cried. Yes you do, Cale said. You always did. The light from the pendant burst outward, filling the tomb. The shadow screamed, its form breaking apart into smoke and claws. Cale swung his blade, cutting through the darkness, but every strike cost him. More of the curse crawling across his skin. Cale, stop! Shouted. It's killing you. He turned, his eyes gold again for one last heartbeat. Then let it. If it means you live. No. I ran to him, pressing my hands to his chest. The pendant flared between us, light and shadow colliding. The tomb shook. The world itself seemed to split. I felt his heartbeat against my palm, slowing, faltering, and then something changed. The shadow wasn't feeding anymore. It was merging. The markings on his skin glowed silver, matching mine. The two lights wove together, bright as dawn. The creature's scream filled the chamber, then vanished in a rush of cold wind. Silence. Cale collapsed. I caught him, pulling him into my arms. Cale, stay with me. His hand found mine. You did it, he whispered. You bound it. Then open your eyes. He tried to smile. You were never supposed to save me. But you did. The moonlight dimmed, fading back to silver. The tomb was quiet again. Cale's breathing slowed, then steadied. The darkness had left his skin. But when he opened his eyes, I saw what it had taken. A piece of him gone, something hollowed out. He looked older, fragile for the first time. It's done, I said. He shook his head weakly. No. The prophecy's not finished yet. We stayed in the tomb until dawn. Kale sat by the altar, his sword laid beside him. The red glow had faded, but the air still shimmered faintly, as if the light hadn't entirely gone. I wrapped his cloak around his shoulders. You should rest. He gave a dry laugh. Rest is for kings who have heirs. You're alive, I said. That's enough. For now, he murmured. But the seal we made won't hold forever. You bound the shadow to me, not destroyed it. That's what the prophecy meant, I realized. One must fall for both to rise. You took it into yourself. Kale met my eyes. Someone had to. I shook my head. There has to be another way. There isn't. He looked down at his hands, at the faint silver glow running through his veins. The shadow sleeps for now. But when the blood moon rises again, it will wake. You must be ready. I won't let it take you. He smiled faintly. That's not your choice. We climbed from the tomb as the sun rose over the valley. The world outside looked new. Fresh air, clean light, the kind of silence that comes only after storms. The mountains glittered with frost. Somewhere far below, the kingdom stirred again. Kale stood beside me, his cloak whipping in the wind. They'll call you the Moonseer Queen, he said. The one who tamed the curse. I didn't tame anything. You faced it, he said. That's enough. I turned to him. What happens now? Now. He looked out at the horizon. Now you rule. And I watch the borders. Someone must guard what we sealed. You mean leave? He nodded. If I stay, the people will never believe the curse is truly gone. They'll fear what still sleeps inside me. Then I'll go with you. He shook his head. The kingdom needs you. They'll follow you. They'll trust you in ways they never could trust me. I stepped closer, my throat tightening. You said we were bound. That means wherever you go, part of me follows. Then let it, he said softly. Let the part of me that's still light stay with you. He took my hand, pressing something into my palm. His ring, engraved with the crest of the Nightbane line. When the shadow stirs again, call my name. I'll hear it. And if you don't come, I will. His eyes were clear now, golden again. I always do. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine. For a heartbeat, everything was still. No prophecy, no curse, no crown, just the quiet pulse of two hearts that had survived too much. Then he stepped back, the wind catching his cloak. Goodbye, Arya. Not goodbye, I said. Just not yet. He smiled, turned, and walked into the mist. The sun rose higher, casting gold over the mountains, and he vanished with it. When I returned to the palace, the guards bowed. The council chambers were empty. The throne room was silent. Lyra met me at the steps. He's gone. He nodded. He's alive. That's enough. She looked at me long, then smiled. Then the kingdom is yours, my queen. I stood before the empty throne, the pendant glowing faintly at my throat. In the polished stone floor, I could see my reflection. Silver eyes, marks faint as moonlight beneath my skin. Somewhere far beyond the mountains, a wolf howled, low and clear, carried on the wind. And I knew, even before the echo faded, that the curse was sleeping but not dead. Weeks passed, but sleep never stayed long. Every night, when the torches burned low, I felt the faint throb of power beneath my skin, the echo of the shadow that Kale carried away with him. Some nights, I thought I could hear his heartbeat in the wind. Other nights, the mountains themselves seemed to whisper his name. The palace had changed. The council's banners were gone. The people of the kingdom called me Moonseer Queen now, but I barely felt like a queen. I ruled because Kale had willed it, and the crown felt heavier than iron. One morning, as fog blanketed the courtyard, Lyra entered the throne room. There's someone here to see you, she said quietly. He bears the mark of the old guard. A man stepped forward from the shadows. He wore travel-stained armor and a torn cloak. His face was familiar, one of Kale's soldiers. Your Majesty, he said, bowing low. I bring word from the border. I rose from the throne. Speak. The king's army held the shadow's remnants at the edge of the veil, he said. But he was wounded. He told me to bring this. He held out a sealed letter. My hands trembled as I broke the wax. Arya, if you read this, the seal has weakened again. The shadow is restless. I can hold it for a time but not forever. You must finish what we began. The tomb's ritual was only half complete. The true seal lies deeper, in the heart of the mountain where the gods buried their fear. When the blood moon rises again, come to me. Bring the moonstone. And if I am not the man you remember, end it before it ends the world. Oh. The letter slipped from my hands. The words glowed faintly, written in silver ink, and at the bottom, a drop of dark blood had burned into the parchment. Lyra caught my arm. My queen. I swallowed hard. He's alive, but the curse isn't gone. That night, I went to the balcony overlooking the mountains. The sky was streaked with clouds, the moon half hidden. You said you'd come back, I whispered. Now you call me to finish what you started. The moonstone pendant pulsed faintly, as if answering. Its light spread along the marks beneath my skin. They had begun to reappear, fine silver threads that glimmered in the dark. The next morning I left the palace. Lyra tried to stop me. You can't go alone. The shadow will sense you. It already does, I said. And if I wait, there won't be a kingdom left to protect. She hesitated, then pressed the crescent ring into my palm again. For the road. May the moon remember you. The journey to the border was long and cold. I rode through villages half abandoned, their windows boarded, their fields overgrown. The people who remained bowed as I passed but would not meet my eyes. They feared what they saw in them, the same silver light that had once belonged to my mother. By the time I reached the vale, snow had begun to fall. The air tasted of ash. The land itself seemed wounded, the trees gray, the rivers sluggish and dark. I dismounted at the edge of an ancient forest and saw it, a faint trail of footprints leading deeper, where the mist glowed faintly red. Followed them. At the heart of the forest, the ground split open into a wide crevasse. Below, the air shimmered with heat though the snow still fell above. It was the entrance to another tomb, older than the one beneath the palace. The runes carved into the stone glowed faintly with the same light as my pendant. Kale's trail led inside. The tunnel was narrow, twisting downward. The deeper I went, the warmer it grew. The air throbbed faintly with power. When I reached the bottom, the passage opened into a vast cavern lined with crystal. At its center stood Kale. For a moment I couldn't breathe. He looked different, paler, thinner, his hair streaked with silver. The markings on his arms burned faintly red, not black now but alive, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the glow in the crystals. You came, he said. You called, I whispered. He smiled faintly, but his eyes were tired. The seal is breaking faster than I thought. The gods buried the truth down here because even they feared what it would do. What truth? That the curse isn't a punishment, he said quietly. It's a choice. I frowned. What are you talking about? Kale turned toward the wall. The crystals flared brighter, revealing carvings beneath them. Scenes of wolves and moonlight, of figures bound by light and shadow. The first seer and the first king made a pact. When the shadow rose, they joined it willingly to their blood to contain it. Every generation after was meant to renew the bond. But one of my ancestors broke it. He wanted power without sacrifice. That's why it became a curse. And now it's your turn, Kale said. The seal must be renewed. The blood of the Moonseer and the blood of the Nightbane joined again willingly. My throat tightened. And the cost? He met my eyes. One of us doesn't leave this mountain. I shook my head. No. There has to be another way. Kale stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the faint heat radiating from him. You always look for another way. That's what makes you you. But some things only end one way. He reached up, brushing his fingers against my cheek. His hand trembled. You shouldn't have come. I won't leave you again. Then pray the gods are merciful, he said softly. Because I won't be when it starts. The ground beneath us trembled. The crystals pulsed with red light, and a low voice echoed through the cavern, deep, ancient, everywhere at once. The blood moon rises. The pact will be sealed again in blood. Kale looked at me, his eyes burning gold. It's begun. The blood moon rose as we stood in the heart of the mountain. The light that filtered through the cracks above was crimson, painting the stone in shades of fire. The markings on my arms flared silver. Kale's blazed gold. The voice of the shadow filled the air again, louder now, almost human. One must fall for both to rise. The blood remembers. Kale drew his sword and placed it point down in the earth. If it asks for blood, it will take mine. Caught his wrist. You can't keep making that choice for both of us. I swore to protect you. And I swore to finish this. I stepped closer, until our faces were inches apart. If you die, the seal breaks anyway. That's what it wants. It feeds on sacrifice. His eyes widened as understanding flickered across his face. Then what? It wants us to choose death, I said. So we won't. We choose life, both of us. The voice of the shadow hissed through the chamber. Foolish child. You cannot change what was written. Maybe not, I said. But I can rewrite it. I raised the pendant. The moonstone glowed blinding white. Light surged through the cavern, meeting the red of the blood moon. Kale's markings blazed brighter, the curse writhing against his skin. He groaned, falling to one knee. It's too strong. Then take it, I said, pressing the pendant into his hand. Take my strength. The light between us flared, weaving gold and silver into one. The shadow screamed, lashing out, striking at both of us. Pain seared through my chest, but I held on, gripping Kale's hand tighter. The air filled with a roar like 1,000 wings. The mountain shook. The light expanded until everything was white. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, the cavern was still. The crystals no longer glowed red. They shone with clean, pale light. The shadow's voice was gone. Kale lay beside me, unmoving. His skin was cold. The markings had faded entirely. Kale, I whispered, shaking him. Please. His eyes fluttered open, gold clear and bright. You did it, he murmured. No, I said through tears. We did. He smiled faintly. Then I can rest. No. Don't you dare. I held his face in my hands. You're not leaving me again. His hand found mine. Then tell the world we chose life. His eyes closed. The light around us dimmed, fading to nothing. For a long moment I knelt there, unable to move. Then slowly I felt it, a heartbeat. Faint but steady. His chest rose once, twice. Kale was breathing. The mountain above us split open, and moonlight poured through the crack, pure and white. The curse was gone. The blood moon had turned silver again. I helped him sit. He looked at his hands, at the clean skin where darkness had once lived. It's over. Not yet, I said. Now we have to live with it. When we returned to the surface, dawn was breaking. The snow had melted, replaced by wildflowers sprouting from the thawing ground. The valley that had been gray was now green again. Kale stood beside me. His sword slung across his back, the wind in his hair. The world feels lighter. It is, I said. For the first time in 1,000 years. He turned to me. What will you do now, Queen of Light? Rule, I said. Protect what we bought with so much pain. And me. You'll stand beside me, I said simply. Not as a curse. Not as a king. As the man who chose life. He smiled, tired but real. Then maybe the gods finally learned mercy. As the sun rose fully, its light touched the ruins of the tomb below, sealing them forever. The shadow was gone, the curse ended. But the memory of it, the strength and the love that survived it, remained. Kale reached for my hand. You were never meant to save me, he said softly. You were meant to save us all. And you were meant to remind me that some darkness is worth facing, I said. We stood together, watching the dawn spill over the mountains. The world was whole again. And for the first time since the curse began, the light no longer feared the shadow. The wind had changed. When it swept across the rebuilt courtyards, it no longer carried the smell of smoke or iron, only rain and pine. Yet everyone in the palace looked upward at night, fearful, because the blood eclipse had left a scar in the sky, a faint red ring around the moon that refused to fade. Could feel it too. Every time I closed my eyes, a heartbeat echoed in the distance. Not mine, not Kale's, something vast sleeping beneath the world. Kale spent his days in the mountains, overseeing the rebuilding of the border keeps. At dawn he would ride out alone, and at dusk he would return, quiet and thoughtful. The curse no longer marked his skin, but the shadows had not left his eyes. One evening he found me in the library where my mother's journals still lay spread across the table. He brushed the dust from one of them and said, "You still search for answers." "Because the moon hasn't forgiven us," I said. "Look at the sky. The eclipse will fade." "It hasn't. It's waiting." He studied the red ring beyond the window and then looked back at me. "You think the ritual wasn't finished. I think it began something we don't understand." He closed the book gently. "Then let's understand it. The Forgotten Temple." We rode west 2 days later, following a trail of silver stones that glowed faintly under moonlight. The path led us to the ruins of a temple older than the palace itself, a place where the first seers were said to have spoken with the gods. The entrance was half buried by vines. Inside, the air was cool and dry. The walls were carved with scenes of the blood eclipse. A moon split in two, a wolf and a woman standing beneath it, light pouring from their joined hands. Kale ran his fingers across the carvings. "It was never meant to be a curse," he said. "It was a covenant. And every generation broke it a little more," I murmured. At the center of the chamber stood an altar shaped from obsidian. Upon it rested a bowl carved with runes that matched the markings that once burned beneath my skin. When I touched the rim, light pulsed through the runes and a low hum filled the air. Kale drew back his sword automatically. "Arya! It's calling us," I said. "Not to fight, to finish." The hum rose to a tone almost like music. Dust lifted from the floor and swirled into patterns, symbols of the moon and wolf intertwined. My mother's voice echoed faintly through the chamber. "When the seal is pure, the bond must be renewed not in blood but in vow." "A vow," Kale repeated. "Not a sacrifice." I nodded slowly. The blood eclipse ritual was never about death. It was about choice. He met my eyes. "Then what do we vow?" "That light and shadow serve each other, not fight." The words came without thinking. Maybe they had waited centuries to be spoken. Kale stepped forward. Together we placed our hands over the bowl. The symbols flared gold and silver. Light rose between our palms, spiraling upward until it touched the ceiling and broke into 1,000 tiny sparks. The air smelled of rain and iron, and the ground shook once, softly, as though the world exhaled. When the light faded, the red ring around the moon had vanished. Kale smiled, the first real smile I had seen since the battle. "It's done," he whispered. "Not done," I said. "Renewed." The king's confession. We camped that night in the temple courtyard. The stars were bright, unbroken by clouds. Kale sat beside the fire, staring into the flames. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to dream of ruling without fear. Now I wonder if fear was the only thing that kept me from losing myself." "You didn't lose yourself," I said. "I did," he replied. "And you found me." He tossed a twig into the fire and watched it burn. "My father used to say the gods choose kings for their strength. He was wrong. They choose us for our weakness, because weakness makes us listen." I reached across the space between us and took his hand. His fingers tightened around mine. "Do you still hear it?" "Yes." "The shadow?" He shook his head. "No. Just you." The firelight flickered over his face, softening the lines of weariness. We sat like that until dawn, when the first pale light touched the stones and the air felt clean again. When we returned, the people knelt as we passed through the gates. For the first time they were not afraid. The soldiers laid their swords on the ground in salute. Bells rang from the towers, a sound of relief, not alarm. Inside the throne room, I stood where Cale once had and looked at the banners. The kingdom survived its curse, I said. Now it must survive its peace. Cale took his place beside me, not on the throne but at my right hand. Then let it learn from you, he said. I smiled faintly. From us. That night the moon rose whole and white for the first time in generations. I watched it from the balcony until sleep claimed me, and in my dreams I saw wolves running through silver fields, free, unbound, alive. Spring returned early that year. Rivers broke through their ice, flowers climbed the castle walls, and the kingdom, long bent under winter and war, began to breathe again. The people called me the Moon-Seer Queen in their songs, though I thought of myself simply as Arya of the Duskbane. I spent my mornings among them, listening, learning what the years of darkness had cost. Cale joined me rarely now. His strength had returned, but he preferred the borderlands, saying that the mountains listened better than courtiers. Every letter he sent smelled of rain and pine, and always ended the same way. The light holds. The shadow sleeps. The council reborn. One afternoon, I gathered the surviving elders in the hall that once trembled with Cale's anger. The crown is no longer a weapon, I told them. It is a promise. You will serve not fear but balance. Some bowed, others hesitated. The eldest of them, a woman who had once voted to exile me, spoke first. And if the shadow returns, Majesty? Then we will face it together, I said. Not with swords, but with what we have learned. The hall fell silent, then one by one they knelt. The sound of their armor striking stone was like thunder rolling out of the mountains, the old world bowing to the new. The return. It was near midsummer when Cale returned. I found him waiting in the courtyard at dawn, dressed not as a king but as a traveler, dust on his boots, a small smile on his face. You kept your promise, I said. And you kept mine, he replied. The kingdom stands. He handed me a small crystal wrapped in cloth. Inside it, faint light swirled, silver and gold together. The last remnant of the shadow, he said. I found it sleeping in the northern pass. It didn't fight. What will you do with it? Bury it, he said. Not destroy it. Even darkness deserves rest. He nodded. Then we bury it together. We rode that evening to the edge of the forest where the first temple once stood. There, beneath a tree that grew silver leaves, we dug a small hollow and laid the crystal within. When the earth closed over it, a new sapling sprang from the soil, slender, pale, and strong. Cale looked at it and said, Every curse leaves a seed. We just chose what this one grows into. New dawn. Months passed. Peace settled like gentle rain. Children were born who had never seen the red moon. The palace echoed with music again. One night, standing on the balcony, I felt a faint warmth against my palm. The moonstone pendant glowed softly, not in warning but in remembrance. Cale joined me, his arm brushing mine. Do you still dream of it? He asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But it doesn't frighten me anymore. He looked at the moon. Nor me. Below us, the city lights shimmered like stars fallen to earth. I thought of the prophecy that had haunted us. One shall fall for both to rise. It never said how many times we had to rise, I said. Cale smiled. Then we'll keep doing it until the gods grow tired of watching. Years later, the story of the cursed king and the seer's daughter became legend. They said the Moon-Seer Queen could command the tides and speak to wolves. They said her king walked the borders in silence, keeping the dark asleep. They said their bond was the thread that held the world together. On the anniversary of the blood eclipse, I climbed the mountain alone. The air was thin and cold. At the summit I found the tree we had planted years before. Its trunk was silver now, its leaves golden at the edges. Beneath it lay a single stone carved with the symbols of moon and wolf intertwined. I placed my hand on the bark and whispered, "We kept our vow." The wind answered with a low howl that faded into the valley. It sounded like Kale's laugh carried through time. When I looked up, the moon was whole and white and impossibly bright. Smiled. "You bought me once," I said softly, remembering the auction, the beginning of everything. "But in the end we chose each other." The moonlight wrapped around me, warm and steady. The world no longer feared its shadows, and neither did I. The Munsier's story might be over, but our pack is just getting started. Hit like, subscribe, and howl with me in the comments below. Tell me which moment stole your heart.